Good morning. Happy Tuesday. I was asked in my comment section, apparently Furry Potato is really against cities paying for insurance for police officers because the taxpayer shouldn't be supporting it. And this person wanted a good argument as to why. Why shouldn't the police have to pay their own? And I'm not the best person to answer this. I'm not an insurance salesman. I'm not a city manager. I don't really have all the answers, but I can give off the cuff I think a few compelling arguments. The first and most compelling argument, I think, is cities need to be able to hire and retain police officers, and they can do that by a variety of reasons. One of the ways that companies tend to hire and retain people is by providing insurance. Um, your company probably provides you with health insurance, and they do that not out of the goodness of their heart, but they do that to attract and retain qualified employees. They probably offer you a 401k. They may even do matching funds into your 401k. And they, again, do that not out of the goodness of their heart, but they do that to attract employees. It's a lot less expensive for them to match 401k funds than it is to give you a 4 or 5% raise. A 5% raise means that they pay, basically, rough math, California, about 10% more. It's just absolutely amazing how much extra taxes there are for employee taxes. It's not actually double, but they pay a lot. So it's just cheaper for them to give you perks. They get to actually write off healthcare. They get to write off the 401k add-ons and things like that, whereas they have to pay employment taxes on your actual direct salary. So it's a hiring and retention strategy. Even if they didn't do that, even if they just paid more to continue to attract police officers, then it would still be taxpayer funds that are going to pay for the insurance, because the police officers would just use their taxpayer funded paychecks to pay for the insurance. So there's really no way around it. If the police officers had to have insurance, they'd have to make enough money to pay for that insurance, and that money obviously would come from the city, from the taxpayer. So that's issue number one. Issue number two for the city is that the city has a vested interest in making sure that the police officers have good representation. They're not going in there with pro per, or having to hire their own counsel because their insurance company is too cheap to provide them with a good attorney. And the reason for that is because of a little issue called collateral estoppel and Monell claims. Monell claims basically allow people to sue the city as if the city were an individual for a 1983 lawsuit. And collateral estoppel means that if an issue has been litigated between two parties already, a third party who is essentially in the same position as one of the two parties can't come in later in a different action and try to litigate that issue again. So if you sue the officer for a 1983 lawsuit and he has no attorney, or a attorney that is like a first-year family law attorney trying to defend him on this federal lawsuit, he might flub it up. He might screw up the defense of it. He loses, great. But one of the issues that gets decided is that there is a policy in place that covered the officer's actions. And so then the attorney, the plaintiff's attorney, being a savvy attorney, says, hey, let's go ahead and sue the city now. We already have collateral estoppel on that issue, that there is a policy that the officer was following that led him to violate the rights. So let's sue the city. And the city would be hard pressed to defend against that because of collateral estoppel. They can't relitigate that issue. So like I said, the city has a vested interest in making sure that police officers are adequately represented, and that's something that their insurance is going to cover. Their insurance is going to pay for an attorney or a law firm to represent those police officers, which will save taxpayers money in the long run. And cities can afford to get bigger and better insurance policies and insurance coverage than officers ever would be, because of the the bargaining power of the city is much greater than that of a single officer. That's just the way it is. I mean, the officers could band together to form a police union, and they could pay dues to the police union, and the police union could essentially take over that function. But again, they'd be funding it from taxpayer money. It would just be funneled through their paycheck. So I mean, it's really no change. There's no difference. I know Furry thinks that it's going to be some huge change, and the police will have to think about what the consequences of their action. But I mean, having insurance, having mandated insurance in California on automobiles has not changed the way people drive. So, I mean, you're just not. It just doesn't follow. It's not logically sound, and it doesn't comport to reality. And finally, as a taxpayer, it's the taxpayers in the city who are more likely to have a interaction with the police, and those people who have an interaction with the police that ends up with their rights being violated are going to want to be able to sue the police and be made whole. One thing, speaking of automobile insurance, one issue that plaintiffs' attorneys really have, and plaintiffs really have in automobile personal injury cases, is that there's a lot of cheap motherfuckers out there who get the bare basic minimum insurance, which in California is $15,000 bodily injury per person, $30,000 per accident. So, I mean, even best case scenario where only one person gets injured in an accident, there's $15,000 to cover medical bills, and $15,000 does not cover a lot of medical bills by any stretch of the imagination. So you have an issue where in California, the California legislature has mandated that insurance companies provide, as part of their insurance, underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage. But what that does is that only covers the difference between your insurance and their insurance. So if you had a $50,000 policy and they had a $15,000 policy, after their insurance paid $15,000, then your insurance would pay the difference up to $50,000. But it would only be so your insurance would be liable for $35,000 maximum, because 15 plus 35 is 50. 50 is their coverage limit. So if you have a $15,000 policy and they have a $15,000 policy, you're not going to get anything from your insurance company. You're only going to get the $15,000. Your lawyer's going to get a third of it. So you're going to get $10,000, and that's not going to go very far for medical bills. So you want the people that you're going to sue to have actual funds available, monies available for judgment. There's three things you look for in a lawsuit. You look for liability, damages, and the ability to collect on a judgment. If you can't collect on a judgment, it's not worth filing the lawsuit. Even if liability and damages are there, if you're not going to be able to get any money out of them, then you're just going to throw away your own money trying to chase it. So if taxpayers are being injured by the police, you want them to be compensated. You want them to be made whole. Making sure that the police have insurance for lawsuits, I think, is a good way of going about that, because there's no guarantee a police officer has a home. There's no guarantee a police officer has a large bank account. And, if you do get a judgment against him and you try to attach his police officer wages, all he has to do is quit. And then you're not collecting shit. Maybe he goes to work part-time flipping burgers, and in California they have to make a certain amount of money before you can even start to attach their wages, and he might just work just enough to stay under that limit, and you're hosed. So that's something to think about. That's why I think it's probably in the best interest for cities to continue to do whatever the city thinks is best, not whatever Furry Potato thinks is best. Because again, I'm not educated on the topic, but I know Furry has no fucking idea what she's talking about. She's looking at it from one angle, and that one angle is she thinks the police are all bad, and she thinks the police are all violent, and she thinks the police all do bad things, and she thinks that by taking away their insurance, that's somehow going to cause the officers to be more circumspect in the way they deal with people, and I don't think that's going to happen. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. If you differ, if you disagree, that's fine. You're welcome to your opinion. If you're an insurance guy, maybe you can let me know where I screwed up. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.